Hi guys, this is Sandra Russell and I'm a sales engineer with Splunk. And I'm going to walk you through this demo that we put together in response to a customer request for traffic around data they collected through their Cisco Meraki endpoint, right? So a little background, I am certainly not the expert on the Cisco Meraki wireless device. What I know about it is that the customer that we worked with, they had put one at one of the areas of the facility that they manage. And to protect their privacy, I'll be super vague and just say that they run facilities, and they were interested in tracking foot traffic at those facilities in different ways at this one facility. So they gave us data from one Meraki endpoint. And the way that Meraki gathers data is this. If you walk by the device and you have a Bluetooth enabled device, even if the Meraki device has never seen that your Bluetooth enabled device before, it could be cell phone or anything really with any kind of Bluetooth enabled, then it just simply writes an event, right? So here are the raw events that you can look at that are related to that are similar to the kind of data this customer sent us. So with each event, there's a timestamp, and there's a timestamp here, and we'll look at the raw. Last seen, the client MAC address, whether or not it's associated with this endpoint, and most of the time that's false. Most of the time the Meraki endpoint has never seen the device before, and the MAC address of the Meraki device, which never changes, at least in the data that they sent us, right? So it's what we're looking at is data from one device tracking different other Bluetooth devices walking by. So they sent us this data, asked us to do some analysis around understanding foot traffic in their facility just based on this data. And Splunk is amazing in that you can get at those answers really quickly. For starters, when Splunk indexed the data, it extracted the key value pairs right away. So we could see right away it extracted last seen, is associated, client MAC, etc. What I did was index the data. Didn't really even need to do any special field extractions. I plugged it into a pivot table, and we'll look at the way that the data model is designed here. Creating a pivot table is as simple as adding an object, defining the constraints, meaning telling Splunk which of all of the data that could possibly be in your Splunk instance at that time, which data you want included in this data model, and extracting the fields that you care about. So we extracted, we brought in as attributes the access point, which is always going to be the same because we're just getting data from one access point, the client MAC address, which we called customer because we made the assumption that it corresponds with a particular customer, the weekday, and that will become important with part of our analysis, and whether or not the client device is associated with the access point, which isn't that useful for our particular type of analysis. But that was the quick data model that we created, just a single event. And we can go into the pivot interface, and right away we can do really, easy basic things like how many distinct customers did you see in a day? So I split the row by time. By default, it broke it out by day. I'm going to limit the time range to the week that I care about. So let's do between May 4th and May 10th, right? So that cuts off a couple of days. So now we have a nice week to look at. And here we're looking at the total count of events, which is cool, but we could assume reasonably that some customers were pinging more than once, right? And what we really care about is just the unique number of customers. So instead of doing the count field, which was the default, we're choosing customer and we're doing distinct count. And I'm going to name this customers, and we're going to update it. And right away, you have a graph that's useful, right? I mean, this is the basics of foot traffic analysis, but it does tell you things like Sunday is the slowest day, followed by Saturday. It picks up during the week. So even if you didn't know what kind of data this is, you might assume that it's maybe a grocery store or some kind of retail establishment that for whatever reason, due to the nature of what it's selling, maybe it just gets more traffic during the week. Tuesday and Thursday are the biggest days. And so we could save that to our dashboard, our overview dashboard. We could name it traffic by week. We're not actually going to do that because in good cooking show style, I already have that in here, right? I've created that panel here as customers per day. And it's showing the same thing that we saw before, that Sunday and Saturday are the slowest days. Tuesday and Thursday are busier days. The next thing that we looked at was average visit duration each day. And the way that we do that, I won't dig into it. What you can do is download the app that's associated on this page where you're finding this video and dig into the search yourself. But roughly speaking, what we do is we grouped visits using the transaction command. So that in any given day, anytime that Splunk sees the same customer ID showing up, Splunk will group all of those visits related to a given customer ID together and calculate the duration of the visit. And then the query averages those so that we get an average duration for each day. And again, you see things that aren't particularly surprising, like again, Tuesday and Thursday, people actually stay a little longer and you get more people. So for whatever reason, based on the nature of the establishment, you're seeing more traffic and longer staying traffic during those days. And by the way, these searches, although we're looking at Meraki data here, these types of searches work just as well with things like web traffic data, like Apache logs, any kind of data really that has some kind of user ID in it. You could run this exact same analysis, right? Down here, this panel, weekday versus weekend traffic hourly, is showing the number of unique customers that you're seeing in a given hour. And this gives us some further insight, like, as we would expect, we're seeing the weekday traffic a little higher than the weekend traffic. I mean, that corresponds with what we see up here where weekend traffic is lower. But this gives you a little bit more, hour by hour insight so you can see the peaks. Like you see, not surprisingly, that the weekend traffic sort of peaks later in the day. And the weekday traffic has two peaks kind of. I mean, it seems obvious from this that this is when the facility is opening, or if it's a 24-hour facility, this is when something is starting that is bringing people in. Again, this is looking a lot like a grocery store or something like that. Then you see a peak around midday and then it trails off. Weekend, again, you just see the midday peak. But to see it there compared to each other gives you some insights as the customer around things like when should we when should we stock the shelves? When should we do the most promotional work? Like when should we hire the people who hand out samples to be there? Knowing when the traffic peak is and when it's not. Can play into a lot of the day-to-day managerial decisions they're making. Finally, return visits. This is one way of looking at the data that shows customer loyalty, right? So what this is saying is 58.76%, so about 60%, about 2/3 of customers only visited once during this week, right? And then it tapers off from there. A few more, 22%, 23% visited twice in the week, almost 10% visited 3 times. And as you would expect, it tapers off a little bit. What I think is interesting is that there are some people that seem to show up every day. That's probably employees, or at least the employees are a good mix of that. But there might also be some customers in there. And I think it's just interesting for whatever reason that there's actually a higher percentage of people that visited 7 days than visited 6 days. Again, employees may be getting in that mix, or there may be something else going on. But this is a number that, just loyalty in general. For instance, calculating the percent of people that visit 2 or more days is something that could be tracked over time, and you could really easily track the success of whatever promotions you're creating that are designed to make the store or the retail facility stickier, right? And again, like this is the kind of analysis that we see a lot also with web traffic, or really with any kind of traffic where retail is a factor, and it's just as easy to do this analysis with web traffic, with web data, or any other kind of data. But this is just a quick and dirty way that we created for our customer who had this kind of data available to them. If you have questions, I'd love to talk more about this. My name is Sandra Russell, and I am a sales engineer with Splunk. So email me at srussell@splunk.com. Thank you.